What's up, everyone? Today is February 20th of 2024, and today we'll be discussing the tragic death of marathon world record holder Kelvin Kiptum in what I believe is one of the most interesting and unique videos I've done in a while. Back in the month of October, I talked about Kiptum's record-breaking performance during Superstream 61, which is linked down below in the description, along with a number of other videos on related topics. In that video, I pointed out how there was a distinct skull and bones theme with Kelvin Kiptum, as marathon runners are skin and bones. Now here we are 3 months later, and Kiptum has passed away. Kelvin broke the world record on October 8th. October 8th was just one day before the special 322nd anniversary of Yale University. Now, this is a topic I've been talking about on this channel for about a year now. And what we're looking at here is the language of Gematria, which is an ancient number lettering, are probably the simplest to understand, where the alphabet is numbered 1 through 26. And we'll also take a glance at the reduction methods, also known as Pythagorean Gematria, as we go. So let's talk about the synchronicity that will lead into the numerology of what we'll be talking about today, and how this is all connected to the Super Bowl and this ongoing DJ or disc jockey theme that we've been talking about. This all starts back on August 7th of 2023. On that date, a man named William Perry, known as DJ Casper, passed away. Now, DJ Casper was from Chicago, Illinois. And what stands out about this is that the name William Perry is shared with a former Chicago Bears legend, a famous player nicknamed the Refrigerator, one of the largest players in NFL history. And this was synced up with the Super Bowl, as my video below, linked in the description, explains. Well then, on October 5th of 2023, Chicago Bears legend Dick Butkus died at 80 years old. And Butkus was born in Chicago, went to high school and college in Chicago, or Illinois, and then played his pro ball in Chicago. Now, when it comes to the Chicago Bears this year, if you look at their leading players in statistics, notice how their leading receiver is named DJ Moore. D. Moore. This is DJ Moore here. And their leading running back is named Khalil Herbert. Here we see Khalil Herbert. So why is this interesting? Well, Dick Butkus died on October 5th, which was the birthday of legendary Chicago DJ Herb Kent, born on October 5th. Kent was the longest-running DJ in the history of radio. And this is something that's even recorded in the Guinness Book of World Records, okay? So here we have a world record-holding DJ. Well, 3 days after Dick Butkus died, Kelvin Kiptum broke the world record at the Chicago Marathon. October 8th, just 3 days later, in Chicago, Kiptum breaks the world record. Now, the initials for Kelvin Kiptum, KK, or 1111, as in Gematria, K is the 11th letter. Well, on the date 11/11, a month later, former NFL player DJ Hayden passed away. I did another video on this that's linked below. So yet another DJ, and he was drafted by and played for several years with the Raiders. This year, the Las Vegas Raiders were the hosts of Super Bowl 58, which was held on February 11th of 2024. February 11th is the same date that Kelvin Kiptum passed away. But not only was this the biggest day for football in America, February 11th was also the biggest day for football in Africa. Kelvin Kiptum, of course, from Kenya, a nation in Africa. And here we see on February 11th, the Africa Cup of Nations final. This is a biennial tournament, so every 2 years we have a final for this big tournament. So all of this connected to the DJ riddle, right? Well then, after the Super Bowl, we get a mass shooting at the Chiefs celebration parade where over 20 people are shot. However, the only person to have passed away is said to be a popular radio DJ. What are the odds of all this? Using the alphabetic order, the phrase disc jockey sums to 104. And this is important for this year, as the 2023 NFL season was the 104th season in the history of the National Football League. So all of this seems to come together a little bit too well, synchronistically, but what we'll look at in this video is how this all happened as well by the numbers. Now, one more thing I wanted to point out about DJ Hayden dying in November. DJ Hayden shares a last name with another NFL player, Nick Hayden. I mentioned Nick Hayden here because he went to high school at Arrowhead High School, which is actually the high school I attended, which is probably why I'm a little bit privy to this part of the riddle. Well, just a couple weeks before DJ Hayden died, Nick Hayden's high school football coach, Tom Tarasca, died. And this was interesting because they actually just named the scoreboard after Tarasca a week before his death. And if you look up the etymology for the name Tarasca, it comes from a Greek word darandos, which means oak. And Tom Tarasca died in a car crash, hitting an oak tree. Notice how the name Tarasca equals 71. Tarasca was 71 years old when he died. Not sure if his age is listed here, but he was definitely 71. And 71 is also the value of car crash, 71. So I point this out in light of the fact that now this world record marathon runner has died in a rollover car crash on the same day as the Super Bowl. The name Kelvin Kiptum also equals 71, and Kiptum died 71 days after his birthday. So it does appear as if there's a connection here between this DJ, Hayden, the Arrowhead coach dying, and of course Arrowhead, right? Arrowhead High School. The Super Bowl was won by Kansas City, the Kansas City Chiefs. And think about KC. This is actually Kelvin Kiptum's initials, Kelvin Cherio. And Kansas City plays at Arrowhead Stadium. So perhaps all along, these were the Super Bowl riddles that we should have been paying more attention to. But regardless of that, let's dive deeper into this riddle, as we're also going to see how this is connected to the show South Park and its creator, Trey Parker. Again, this is one of the most interesting videos I've made in a while, so let's dive in. So to start the video, I mentioned how there's a skull and bones riddle here, as the record was broken one day before the 322nd anniversary of Yale University, which is home to the Skull and Bones Secret Society with its number 322 on the emblem. So from skin and bones to skull and bones goes Kelvin Kiptum. His death occurred the same day as the final for the Africa Cup of Nations. In reverse gematria, Africa Cup of Nations equals 295. Kelvin Kiptum died 295 days before his next birthday, which stands out because when he broke the marathon world record on October 8th, he was exactly 295 lunar phases old. As I just mentioned, Yale turned 322 in 2023. Well, when you write out the numbers 223 and 322, you get ordinal values of 295, just like Skull and Bones Society in reverse. So how on earth could this be connected to South Park? Well, I myself am surprised I caught on to this, but check out Dick Butkus's middle name. His middle name is Marvin. And when I was thinking about this skin and bones thing, the phrase Starvin Marvin came to mind. And back in 1997, during its first season, South Park aired an episode called Starvin Marvin. And remarkably, you're going to learn how this episode is completely synced to this story. The first thing that stands out about this Starvin Marvin episode is that this is the first episode of South Park which was a solo credit for Trey Parker, both directing and writing. Every episode before this was both Trey Parker and Matt Stone. So we're going to see how this is specially linked to Trey Parker. Parker was born 322 months after Dick Butkus was born, and his birthday is also 322 days after Kelvin Kiptum's. And 322, the big skull and bones number, right? Remember how my other two videos on the Super Bowl explained how it's all synced up to the Georgia Guidestones, which even opened on March 22nd, or 322. If you haven't checked out my two previous videos on Super Bowl 58, feel free to do that. That'll explain this Guidestones riddle. When Kiptum broke the world record, it was on October 8th, which is the date that leaves 84 days in the year. October 8th is also the anniversary of the Great Chicago Fire, which began on October 8th. In the alphabetic order, Chicago Fire equals 84. Measuring from November 19th, the Starvin Marvin episode, to the date of Kiptum's death on February 11th is 84 days. But that's also 2 months and 23 days. And with capital letters, notice how the name Starvin Marvin sums to 223. These capital letter ciphers are very significant. We'll be looking at these as well. They maintain the alphabetic order, but either mix or add capital letters 1 through 52 as we go. But here's the really crazy alignment that I almost couldn't even believe. Measuring from the Chicago Fire to the birth of Trey Parker is 98 years 11 days, while Dick Butkus was born 9,811 days before Trey Parker. In the alphabetic order, South Park equals 129. This points to another huge element of this. Dick Butkus was born on December 9th, or 12-9, like the number 129. Kelvin Kiptum died 129 days after Butkus died. Later this year, we have the Great American Eclipse on April 8th. And notice how that eclipse falls a span of 1 month and 29 days after Kelvin Kiptum died. In fact, that eclipse is also 129 days after his birthday. And just a few days before his death, his world record was verified by World Athletics. World Athletics founded during Brown Lunation -129. But this 129 was a number in my Super Bowl decode as well. Think about how Taylor Swift equals 129, and she's supposedly dating the tight end of the Chiefs. Tight end equals 129. So let's give you even more. Starvin Marvin was Season 1, Episode 8. And in ordinal gematria, Starvin Marvin equals 180. The Chicago Marathon had these same digits, October 8th, like 10-8. The Chicago Fire also beginning on 10-8. And think about how important this number is to Chicago. The Willis Tower, 108 stories tall. The Chicago Cubs broke a 108-year drought to win the World Series. There's more examples, but notice how Kelvin Kiptum died exactly 18 weeks after October 8th when he broke the world record. And using the alphabetic order, if you were to write out skin and bones, Notice how this sums to 108. In reverse reduction, marathon world record, also 108. Kelvin Kiptum was born 2 years and 13 days after the Starvin Marvin episode aired. Notice how Kelvin Kiptum equals 213. So does Chicago Fire and Great Chicago Fire, breaking the record on the anniversary of the fire. Death equals 213 in Satanic for good measure. Kiptum's world record was on the 152nd anniversary of the Chicago Fire. And in reverse caps, marathon equals 152 and 126 without the capital letters. Well, his death fell 152 years and 126 days after the fire. 126 also found in the Gematria of Starvin Marvin, whose South Park episode aired 126 years after the fire. But if you thought that was wild, what about this? As I pointed out in my original decode, Kelvin Kiptum's world record was exactly 1,880 lunar phases after the Great Chicago Fire. Chicago Marathon and world record both equal 188 in caps added. But in a cipher called Latin Gematria, which I actually consider to be the most significant method in this study, particularly of the extended ciphers that provide large numbers, notice how Starvin Marvin equals 1,880. But that's not even it. If you measure from the date of the fire to the world record last year, you also get exactly, not only the 1880 with the lunar phase, but also you get an exact count with sidereal months. Now, a synodic month and a sidereal month differ slightly by about 2 days, both strong measurements of the moon. And this 232 stood out because not only does Richard Marvin Butkus, Starvin Marvin Butkus, not only does his name equal 232 in ordinal, but Starvin Marvin equals 232 with capital letters. And to solidify this connection, October 8th, the date of the marathon, was the same exact day that Israel declared war against Hamas. And that's Israel's largest military conflict since the Yom Kippur War. And Yom Kippur War has the same 1880 Gematria as Starvin Marvin in the same method. In my videos on the Super Bowl, I explained how this was all a riddle for the Georgia Guidestones, and that's what I want to look at for the next part of this video. Before I get there, I want to talk about the number 312. Now, I mentioned the number 213 a couple times, right? Kelvin Kiptum 213, born 2 years and 13 days after the episode, like Chicago Fire. But if you take these digits and reverse them, you get 312. And 312 is the primary area code for Chicago, Illinois. And the world record was broken 310 months and 20 days after the Starvin Marvin episode. Chicago, Illinois has 312 Gematria with reverse caps. Also in reverse, Aaron Charles Rodgers sums to 312. Aaron Rodgers, the 4-time NFL MVP, who used to be the quarterback for the Bears' rival, the Green Bay Packers. And remember, Rodgers injured on 9/11 this year. But the name Aaron Charles Rodgers, 312. And this is relevant because the Bears are owned by Aaron Rodgers, right? He's owned the team throughout his career in Green Bay. But notice how Aaron Rodgers has the same December 2nd birthday as Kelvin Kiptum, 12/2. Now, this 12/2 stood out because Kelvin Kiptum died 1 year, 220 days after the Georgia Guidestones were destroyed. Now, that's also important because I've mentioned this several times now, how Aaron Rodgers revealed his new tattoo on the same exact day that the Guidestones were destroyed, July 6th of 2022. Like, if you punch this date in and look up Aaron Rodgers' tattoo, yeah, you'll see this is the date, published on 7/6, that he reveals this occultic tattoo with all this kind of Illuminati symbolism, sort of, right? Now, this Super Bowl was contested between Kansas City and San Francisco, which both summed to 122 in ordinal. San Francisco, the team from the 122nd Meridian. This is another number connected to South Park, as Trey Parker was born exactly 1 year, 220 days before his co-creator, Matt Stone. If you measure from the date that the Georgia Guidestones opened to the birth of Aaron Rodgers, you get 1,350 days, and this is the next huge number of this riddle. 135 is the ordinal gematria of the name Aaron Rodgers. Think about how in reverse, skin and bones equals 135. World record equals 135 ordinal. And this skin and bones man set the world record on the anniversary of the Great Chicago Fire, which equals 135. In Sumerian gematria, which is the alphabetic order multiplied by 6, the phrase marathon world record equals 1350. And Kelvin Kiptum broke the marathon world record 1,350 weeks after the South Park episode of Starvin Marvin. Dick Butkus's real name is actually Richard. Now, if you take the name Rick Butkus, you get a double 135 in gematria. Rick Butkus. But in Sumerian gematria, anything with 135 in ordinal, you multiply this by 6 and you get 810. Kelvin Kiptum was born 8 months and 10 days after the anniversary of the Guidestones. And of course, so was Aaron Rodgers, same birthday. Now, the Georgia Guidestones sat in the path of totality of the 2017 total eclipse in Georgia. And this brings us to the next part of our video here, the eclipse code. Kelvin Kiptum was born exactly 192 months after Aaron Rodgers. This is the Latin gematria of Eclipse 192, and then 33 in reduction. Kiptum had reduced birth numerology of 33, and to top it off, he was also born in 1999, and 1999 is the 303rd prime number. Well, the word 33 has matching Latin gematria with ritual human sacrifice through the digits 895. The same digits, by the way, as Jesus, 985. And check this out. The Guidestones were bombed 8,995 days after Starvin Marvin aired, and Kelvin Kiptum died 9,580 days after that same date. Meanwhile, this year's eclipse falls 8,895 days after Kelvin Kiptum's birthday and 19,895 days after Trey Parker's birthday. The South Park writer, again, Starvin Marvin, was the first episode where Trey Parker had a solo writing credit. Now, this also connects to Super Bowl 20, which was the only time the Bears have ever won the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 20 fell exactly 1,985 weeks before Super Bowl 58, which is also 13,895 days. So you see how these digits, this sacrifice 33 code, are completely synced up with this year's Super Bowl and the death of this marathon runner. One of two numbers that sums to 33 in reduction is 90. And you have to appreciate this. In the alphabetic order, the name Kiptum equals 90. And he was a world record marathon runner. Both marathon and runner equal 90. He broke the record on the anniversary of the Great Chicago Fire, which sums to 90 in both reduction methods. Starvin Marvin equals 90, reverse reduction. And of course, the moon equals 90 in ordinal. Well, Kelvin Kiptum died exactly 90 lunar phases after the Chicago Cubs won the World Series. Of course, the Cubs, the major curse in sports, and really the biggest sports team from Chicago, I guess you could say. I would be willing to wager that they earn more than the Bears, but I could be wrong. Now, as I pointed out earlier, this was the NFL's 104th season. And not only does DJ equal 14 in ordinal, but disc jockey equals 104. The Kansas City disc jockey who was killed at the parade was born 100 months and 4 weeks exactly after Lisa Lopez of TLC. And this victim's name was Lisa Lopez-Galvan. Again, see my video for more on that connection. The Georgia Guidestones opened up 104 days after Dick Butkus's birthday. The 104th season of the NFL ended 1 month and 4 weeks before the total solar eclipse, which equals 104. Starvin Marvin only ever appeared on 2 episodes of South Park. And it was 2 Thanksgiving specials. Those 2 episodes aired exactly 104 weeks apart from each other. In fact, Trey Parker was born 1,401 weeks and 4 days after Dick Butkus. Skull and Bones, 140 reverse. The 2 great American eclipses are separated by exactly 346 weeks. Kelvin Kiptum broke the world record exactly 346 sidereal months after Starvin Marvin first aired. This year's eclipse falls 1,830 months exactly after the Great Chicago Fire and 183 days after Kiptum's world record. Kiptum also died 18 weeks and 3 days after Dick Butkus. Kiptum celebrated his final birthday on a date with 57 numerology, and then he died 57 days before the total eclipse. In fact, the date he died also had primary numerology of 57. Notice how in Hebrew, eclipse equals 57. And Kiptum was born exactly 1 week before Dick Butkus's 57th birthday. Now, the 57th prime number is 269. Dick Butkus was 20,000, 69 days old when Starvin Marvin aired. Remember, Dick Butkus's middle name is Marvin. Chicago Marathon, world record, and Richard Butkus all summed to 269 in Gematria. But finally, I want to wrap this up by looking a little bit more closely at the numerology of Trey Parker. February 11th was the final of the Africa Cup of Nations, which sums to 1,019. This is the same gematria in standard as Georgia Guidestones 1,019. Well, Trey Parker was born on October 19th, a lot like 1,019. The name Trey equals 585. And the Georgia Guidestones were bombed 585 days before the Super Bowl and the death of Kelvin Kiptum. Trey was also born 585 days before Matt Stone, his South Park co-creator. When Starvin Marvin aired, Trey Parker was exactly 28 years and 1 month old. Richard Marvin Butkus equals 281. These numbers also connect to Chicago Fire, Dick Butkus. But also I want to mention Pheidippides. Pheidippides is the ancient Greek messenger who is credited with running the first ever marathon, running from Marathon to Athens, and then collapsing and dying immediately afterwards. And of course, this is important. We're talking about the marathon world record. Well, notice how in Latin Gematria, Pheidippides sums to 323. Kelvin Kiptum died at the age of 323 lunar orbits. His death fell 3 months and 23 days after Trey Parker's birthday, who wrote the Starvin Marvin episode, which aired on November 19th, the 323rd day of the year. And when Kiptum broke the world record on October 8th, that was 323 days after November 19th. This episode aired 310 months before the world record was broken. Marathon equals 310, so does the name Richard Marvin Butkus. And when Kelvin broke the world record, he was 310 days after his birthday. So yeah, guys, I guess that'll do it for this decode. Again, truly one of the most bizarre and rock-solid decodes I've done on this channel in a while. But who would have guessed that this marathon runner dying on the same day as the Super Bowl is all synced up to a South Park episode that makes fun of African people? I mean, this stuff is kind of twisted, isn't it? And I almost feel twisted for bringing it to light, but this is the kind of thing that's going on behind the scenes in this world, and who's responsible for it? I mean, you're talking about an episode from, over 26 years ago being synced up perfectly with a guy who wasn't even born yet. I can't explain what's going on in our world, but we definitely live in the Matrix. We definitely live in a scripted reality, and it's all playing out by the numbers as we can see them. All right, everyone, that'll do it for this one. Peace, love, God bless. If you want to check out more, once again, the links in the description will lead you to more of my work, as well as a page where you can help support this work if you've found that Gematria and my videos have helped enlighten you or others. All right, guys, we'll talk to you next time. See ya.